Amazing. So awesome to have you, Brian.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome. And welcome to Appy Hour. Appy Hour is a podcast that is set to take a deep dive into some of the most immersive and positive disruptive technology that is on the market today and that is going to market, and then get to know the founders behind them, the masterminds, and really have a conversation on their journey, what it took to get there, and what their mission is. And so here I have Brian Bristol of Pigeon Loans, and there's so many things I can say about you today. I mean, you are just knocking through all the walls right now. You just were able to accomplish something that most founders are only dream of, which is a $2.5 million raise just recently, being featured in Forbes Magazine, and the list really goes on, with not to mention getting into Y Combinator in 2022, which is absolutely astounding. And you're such a young man, and accomplishing all these things is obviously, something that we all strive to do. So you're really kind of our poster child for what we want to aim for right now. And so I want to just ask you a little bit about, when this initial vision came to mind to create Pigeon Loan, which is really a huge need in the market in fintech. What really derived that need? Like, how did you know that you could solve that problem?
Yeah, definitely. So I'll kind of get into what Pigeon is to start with. If people don't know, we're an app that you can use to lend money to your friends and family a little bit easier. So we've been around for about 4 years.
Yeah.
We've grown to be about 50,000 customers over the course of 7 or 8 different countries now. We move about $15 to $20 million in loans every single year. Like you said, we raised from YC. We've done a lot of damage in the startup world, but the problem originally came about during the pandemic around 2020, 2021, and I needed to lend money to some friends and family of mine. And it was a situation.
Did they have a bad history where you knew they weren't going to, that uncle that never pays you back?
Yeah, no, exactly. It's one of those situations where, like, who's asking you for money, and you're like, well, I can help, but, like, I don't know if I'm comfortable helping, right?
Yeah.
So at that time, I was a software engineer in Silicon Valley, and I was still kind of building my career. But at the same time, I had extra time to build other stuff because everyone was at home and they were just kind of watching TV. Like Tiger King was the big thing at that time, which is hilarious. But I took that time that summer to build a version of Pigeon of what it is today. It was a little app that I used between me and my family just to kind of track things, make sure it felt comfortable. I wanted a little bit of documentation, etc. And then that worked, right?
Wow.
So
what was your family's reaction when you asked them, look, I can do it, but you have to kind of sign something official? Like, what's the reaction to that?
It was both positive and negative. Like, you get the initial inertia where it's like, do we really have to go through all this? And then I'm like, well, do you really need all this money? Right? Like, it's that back and forth. So it gets to the point where it's like, all right, I understand. You want a little bit more comfortability. I'm willing to sign up for this new app that you created to see if we can do this a little bit better. So I did that initially, and then I put it out on the market in terms of just like my own social media, like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And it was really cool that a lot of my friends and other people I hadn't really talked to gave me positive reactions, being like, wow, I wish I had Pigeon when I lent this to someone.
And didn't get it back.
Exactly. or didn't get it back, et cetera, et cetera. So from there, I realized there was actually a bigger problem going on. I found out that there's almost $200 billion moving every single year as loans between friends and family that isn't necessarily supported. Like, we don't have the emotional support, the educational support, the documentation, the legal, the financial, to actually make those transactions a little bit easier on people. So what I did was I scaled up Pigeon. I was like, all right, got this idea, I've got this product. Now I just need to kind of raise money, get customers, continue to build features, and see what happens. So that's been the course of the 4-year journey, just doing that repeatedly, trying to get to more and more success. And that's kind of where we're at today.
Do you see this being something that disrupts the banking economy?
I think loans between friends and family have always been there. So it's not going to disrupt something that has kind of already been there.
But if I'm a person that's like, okay, do I give my cousin who's kind of always got these crapshoot ideas, $10,000, but I know I'm backed by something more official? Do we then almost all turn into almost institutions where we're more likely to do it?
So there's a chance that you become more likely, but what we've seen thus far is there's a banking world and then there's an underbanked world. And either way, they're going to play a part where they help one another out. So we've had conversations with big banks and said, hey, can we help use this with our customers? And we've had conversations with ourselves where, like, are there loaners or big institutional people that can help our customers? So it's a one-on-one correlation, and it's a
it's more
partnership.
symbiotic than anything. I agree.
It's symbiotic. So in terms of what we've seen in recent years, when Pigeon first started, interest rates were like 0%. Like money was kind of free in a way from a banking perspective, and people are
quite a difference.
It's very different now. So interest rates are now 5%, and people are using Pigeon more. So like you said, there's a little bit more inclination now where I can't go to Fannie Mae or Wells Fargo or whatever and get the loan that I was getting 3-4 years ago for 2% interest. I now have to consider my friends or my family to get that same amount of money for a smaller amount of interest, right? So we're now seeing big transactions. We've done mortgages on Pigeon where it's 500, like $500K over 30 years.
That's incredible.
We've had small loans, but we've had everything in between where like you're either funding your business or your lifestyle or whatever. It's just Pigeon has a lot of flexibility in what we can help people with.
I think this is going to be the biggest movement that we see in fintech in the next few years, honestly.
I hope so.
I see like everything that you see, I can see the vision of like how big this can be. I mean, this is like, taking a lending economy and opening it up to the whole world and just blowing the cap off it. And I think that, your vision and the way you work is so genius, and we've kind of collaborated with Digital Prodigy in terms of, kind of doing some initial landscaping and discovery with you. And, as soon as we came across Pigeon, we were just blown away by your plan, everything that you were doing. I know that you went to Columbia, you went to my dream school. So congratulations. Is there a vision that you see this going in terms of helping people, helping businesses? Like, what's your biggest goal for this?
Yeah, so the biggest goal is definitely supporting people in their relationships. Like, we're almost a relationship emotional company first and then financial second. So if we can help people have better conversations where they're on tough times, and instead of feeling alone or feeling like no one's there to help them, they do have a resource and a technology to say, oh, I can go to my friends and my colleagues, my family to help that out. So it's kind of our first mission. The second mission is just to make these things more accessible. Like, people don't know that you can loan money between friends and family, write that off, help with your gift tax.
Write it off. Wow, I love that.
Have the interest, like do things for your own personal financial gain, where we're trying to educate people through that process. We're giving them the tool, but also you can come to Pigeon, read about it, understand different articles and things that we post to tell you, oh, here are some aspects of the financial world you might not have known about.
Wait, so you're saying I could charge interest on this and actually make a little extra money?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, that's a no-brainer. That's amazing.
So you could charge interest, and then if it doesn't get repaid, you can also write that off in your taxes for that given year. And those are things that like we know as like a company, but people don't know, and we're trying to educate along the way.
Wow. Okay, I need to know this because I'm sure everyone is dying to hear your process to get into Y-Com. And there's so many people out of the 99% that don't get chosen. You were the 1% that did. Tell me a little bit about, like, just in a recap, like, I know you told me before, you were like, Diana, listen, it's harder to get into Y-Com than it is Stanford. And I believe it. Although I believe you'd get into Stanford with flying colors. But like, what was it like from submitting that application, wondering if you're going to get through, like, where were you at mentally, and how did you kind of push through and get through that process?
Yeah, so funny enough, the backstory behind Y Combinator is I was raising my pre-seed round, which was like 400K. I'd gotten up to like 150, 200, and I was running out of leads. I had applied to a different program that actually rejected me after doing 6 different like applications and interviews and all this stuff.
Wow.
And I felt like so hurt, especially by the amount of time that I put through and the amount of effort, that I was like, you know what? Screw this. I'm not going to use the other word. I was like, screw this. I'm going to apply to the biggest, baddest accelerator there is. And I'm going to get in, and I'm going to show you guys that you guys messed up. So I then
Is this your moment now to be like, I told you so?
Yeah, exactly. I
won't say any names.
Yeah. But in terms of that motivation, it then pushed me to put in an application for YC. There's no secret sauce to getting into YC. It's funny enough. It's actually pretty simple. Like, you need to understand what problem you're solving and then understand why you think your solution is. And then you need to make sure that you talk to the people that you're trying to solve the problem for to validate that, right? You have those 3 things, you're pretty much going to at least catch YC's attention.
Wow.
Now it comes down to how well do you perform in terms of the interview, how well do you perform in terms of understanding your like business as a whole and what you might need to succeed, et cetera. And then that's how you get into the quote unquote community, right?
Amazing.
So for me, kind of took it step by step. Like I tried my hardest from the application. It was
Mhm.
really vulnerable. And then when I got to the interview stage, I did well enough. And then they were like, hey, we need a couple extra things from you. I went and got those things done in like 3-4 weeks. And they're like,
Wow.
all right, we're impressed with what you got done. So, hey, welcome to YC type of thing.
Brian, would you say that a lot of people say this, and it's a little controversial, that the
Mhm.
story outweighs the actual product itself? Like, not outweighs it, but is almost just as important to tell a really great story when it comes to pitching?
Yeah, I think YC, they care about people.
Yeah.
So they understand that you may come into YC with a different business than you actually exit out of YC with.
Right.
So they care about your story as well as how you think, how you kind of formulate ideas, and how you get to a solution.
Mhm.
And then they trust you once they get in. Hey, we're going to give you $500,000, 750. I don't know what the number is now
Mhm.
these days. To then take that money and turn it into something valuable.
Exactly.
No one's saying it was going to be Pigeon to start. It could be a completely different company by
Right.
the end. But they trust you as an individual to be competent
Mhm.
enough to take that money and turn it into something.
Wow, that's incredible. And so tell me about demo day. It's like this
Yeah,
elusive
demo
thing
day's
I'm
fun.
curious about. And just so everyone knows, like YCOM accepts about 1% to 1.5% of their applicants. They're responsible for over 100 unicorns. And their biggest standout is Stripe, which is now, I think it's valuated at like 90 billion.
Yeah, 100 billion.
100 billion, something like that, which is insane. We know like some of the biggest apps in the marketplace. Also, Pigeon Loans in the very near future is going to be part of that list. But
yeah,
demo day, you could probably explain it better than me. But just like, how did you get through that intense pressure? And did you feel prepared? And like, did you knock it out the park, or do you feel like you could have done something better?
Oh, I would say I like personally, not trying to be unhumble or anything like that. Like
Humble brag.
I killed demo day, and
Love
it was one of those things where after demo day we had a raise of 2.5. We raised it in maybe 72 hours after demo day.
Oh my
because
gosh.
it was just one of those things where like under pressure I worked really well. So demo day was good for me.
Yeah.
In terms of preparation to get there, the whole batch is 3 months. So we were remote because at that time it was still like stay home and COVID and whatnot. But over those 3 months, you're working as hard as you possibly can to make your company successful, given the metrics that you define for yourself. Right. And if you get to the end of 3 months and you're like, all right, I hit these milestones, come demo day, it's pretty easy. You're kind of just 60 seconds on stage. You tell them how good you've done in the last 3 months and where you want to go in the next 3 to 6 months.
Okay.
And then you garner investor attention after that, right?
Wow.
So for you as a founder or anyone who's kind of like going through the YC process or even thinking about going through the YC process, it's just like understanding how to move fast and how to make mistakes quickly and how to grow from those mistakes, et cetera. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. And one more question for you, because I think everybody would love to know this feeling. I think we could all say that waking up to a Forbes article, being featured in Forbes, is probably, as a founder, one of the best feelings in the world. How did that feel to know like where you came from? I don't know your personal story.
Yeah.
But I know that, you know, you didn't grow up with a silver spoon in your mouth, and you made it all the way to Columbia. You made it to working at Pinterest, you know, as a developer, and then moving on into your, you know, incredible success you've garnered so far. That all is from, you know, your intelligence, your skill and your knowledge and the way you think. What did that feeling feel like, waking up and seeing you being featured in Forbes Magazine?
Yeah, so Forbes is interesting. That was almost this time last year now. So Forbes 30 under 30, I'm 27 now at the time of this. And it was one of those accomplishments that I'd always thought about when I was like 18, 19, 20. And to kind of wake up and be like, oh, wow, you got this. It's really interesting.
Did you have a bunch of like text messages like, hey, look at you?
It's funny, like it pours in after it trickulates through the system.
Gotcha.
So like the first thing I woke up to was the email being like, hey, you're a lister. And I was like, whoa, that's interesting.
Wow.
And then like I kind of sat in my bed and I was like, I'm a lister. And then I texted a few people and like, whoa, that's crazy. And then I made my like Instagram post and LinkedIn post that everyone does. And then that started to be like, oh, that's even bigger and bigger. So I took it seriously, but I really didn't realize the gravity of it until I went to their summit. So every year they host a summit. And then at the summit, I was like, bro, the people here and like what they like, I did not feel at all qualified to even be in that room.
Which is exactly the room you want to be in, right?
Exactly. It was like everyone here is just doing insane stuff, like astronaut type level where you're like, what? How do you get to that? Right? So
a little imposter syndrome.
Yeah, definitely an imposter syndrome. So for me, it was definitely humbling to like be in that room and understand there's still more to accomplish. At the same time, I'm super grateful for the accolade, but at the end of the day, like it's one of those things that I feel is a stepping stone and not necessarily the goal.
Exactly. Yeah. I look forward to getting all the updates and maybe even being part of Pigeon Loans one day as far as doing some work with you guys. But in the meantime, if you could send our listeners off with some advice, because most of the people listening here in our audience are going to be founders that you are literally like exactly where they want to be in a few years from now. And some people, it takes 10 years to get where you are in just such a short period of time. What advice would you give to our listeners that would just help them get to the next level?
Yeah, definitely. So I think mistakes are going to happen. Like I'm not someone who didn't have mistakes throughout the journey. I'm still making mistakes to this day. And you're always going to think you're going to fail in that journey. It's about understanding that as long as you keep making incremental steps forward, there is some positive path. You will have a lucky break. You will have an opportunity that you didn't expect. So it's about being prepared for those moments and like continuing to make those steps forward. That'll really get you to the end of the goal.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I know that I can definitely attest to that, because I think as a founder, letting go of that ability to have to control what goes right and what goes wrong, and just know that either way you're going to get something out of it.
Yeah.
You're always, I recently went through something and I learned this incredible thing. It's so simple. If you're in pain, you're learning.
Yeah.
If you're not in pain, you're not learning. You're just reaping the benefits of the pain.
Yeah.
Like literally, it's that simple. And so I actually now embrace the pain, and I look for little ways to put myself out of my comfort zone and to create this connection between the unfamiliar and something that excites me. Because the more that we can get excited about our discomfort, the more we can always be growing every day. And that makes us not have to compare ourselves to anyone at any point. We're literally only comparing ourselves to the version we were yesterday. And I love that. So Brian, I mean, this is incredible having you here. Thank you so much. And I hope to have you back soon when you're like, you know, unicorn and you're just flying around and doing your thing. So I love it. Thank you so much.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining Appy Hour, and we hope to see you in the next episode. Cheers.